Welcome to the Street Cred podcast, the show laser focused on helping brand owners turn their streetwear side hustle into a full-time job. I'm Elijah Delport, and today I'm joined by the co-founder of Mertra turned fashion advisor. Welcome, Caspar Tremlett. How are you doing, Caspar?
Going really well, thanks, Elijah.
I'd love you to explain, Caspar, because you're not a part of Mertra anymore, and so now you've moved into this position as a fashion advisor. But I'd love you to, because you've been on my show one time, actually on episode 3 or 4 it must have been
A couple of years ago now.
Yeah, a couple of years ago now. So it's been a minute. And so I think for a lot of people, this is going to be the first time that maybe they're seeing your face or hearing your name, but particularly in this role as a fashion advisor. So I'd love you to unpack what you're doing now. What are you doing as a fashion advisor, Caspar?
Sure. So basically during like my experience, and I mean, when I talk to so many different brand owners, when you give making your own brand a crack, there's just so little resources. Obviously, with the internet at the moment, there's actually an abundance of resources everywhere. But in terms of kind of valuable resources that are kind of closely connected to you, or that someone's like just recently been through where you're hoping to get as a fashion brand, Mertra was obviously able to take off pretty well. And there was a bit of success there. So I kind of want to be a helping hand as a fashion advisor for those that are either looking to start their own brand and just don't know really where to start at all. Or if you're currently like doing your own fashion brand, there may be a certain kind of section or aspect of the business you're struggling with, and kind of giving a bit of insight and valuable information with that, just from, I guess, experience, as well as working with a bunch of brands since my time at Mertra, as well as like working with influencers and stuff like that.
I think what would be really great, Caspar, is, I mean, I personally know about the context behind what you're doing now with Mertra and everything that came before.
Yeah.
But for someone who doesn't know about the early success that Mertra had, and how it was set up for what it's doing now, I'd love you to unpack a little bit more about that context before we maybe move on into some of the details about, how someone could start doing that for themselves. So could you unpack some of that context?
Of course. If you want a bit more in depth, obviously, maybe look at your prior podcast we did with you. I think that was like an hour-long episode, and that was kind of at the very beginning when it was looking to take off. So in terms of actual insights, that'd be a really good resource to kind of refer to potentially listening after this podcast. In terms of the brand itself, similar to any business, it was just an idea. It was the ideation phase of thinking, we've always loved fashion. Maybe we can make this work and do a few designs and put it on a t-shirt and start a clothing brand, I guess. And it kind of slowly escalated and progressed really fast into selling out of drops, getting a bigger community and audience, doing some cool in-person events and stuff like that. And now at the point where it's at now, although I'm no longer in it, is probably one of the more reputable brands rather to come out of, say, Melbourne and Australia.
Yeah, I remember watching from the beginning, Caspar. It was really amazing, actually, because I still remember the first post on Mertra. It was I don't know if it was the first or one of the first, but it was the spinning butterfly as the Mertra logo. And it just went absolutely off. And the engagement was, this is when, like, it was actually a similar time when I first came into the fashion industry myself.
I remember it was a really kind of close timeline when we first initially spoke.
Yeah, which is really funny because I don't know, it makes this relationship feel kind of special because it's like, oh, we have something to like we
bit of history there, bit of history.
Yeah, bit of history. We relate in many ways. Of course, I didn't enter into the fashion industry with a brand as such, but yeah, like I still remember that first post, and so yeah, like that.
Time flies.
Absolutely. I think like that's the beginning, exactly what you've outlined in terms of that early success is what so many brands now they see that, and that's what they're striving for. Like that's the
Yeah, that's the goal,
dream.
right? Yeah, for
Like
sure.
you guys, I don't, somehow you from the get-go you struck gold, and you got the dream that everyone looks at, like the whole reason that anyone starts a fashion brand in the first place. Like that was Mertra. I'm sure
Mm.
you were that for so many people. But the thing is, Caspar, and I'm sure you'd see this as well, they're brands that see that dream and they start a clothing brand,
Yeah.
and drop one comes around and the engagement isn't there,
Mm.
and
I think
they've
I
got,
think that's happening more and more now, obviously,
yeah,
with there's kind of been an increased popularity of starting brands, and it's
yep.
becoming almost a bit saturated. But you see these kind of brands maybe do one or two releases and then never hear from them again.
That's right. I swear, just as quickly as these brands are popping up, they're also falling. And
Yeah,
it kind of makes
100%.
it makes me sad, because I look at something some brand is doing and I see the potential, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. It's got something good going for it. But there isn't that short-term success that they look up, they
Yeah,
scroll
for
on their
sure.
Instagram page.
Well,
There's
that's
not
the
that
difficult
short-term
thing,
success.
hey? When you
Mm,
there's just kind of you sometimes need that instant gratification, like that's what you're kind of going for. Whether that's a
yeah.
quantifiable number in terms of follower count, view count, or even just selling out of your garments. And obviously, when you put hard work into a project, probably being your fashion brand in this example, it's going to be disappointing if it doesn't go how you kind of expected it to go or how you were kind of hoping and
Mm,
planning it would go. So that kind of those dark moments and those dark stages, which are very easy to happen at the beginning, especially if you don't know kind of the best practices to give yourself the best chance
yes.
to potentially put in your like garments or just your overall
Mm.
brand in a good light, and then you kind of fall off and you're upset, and then with all those difficulties you just see people fall off quickly.
Yeah. And even beyond the startups, this like this ever looming risk of,
Yeah,
well,
for
am I going to
sure.
have to call it quits today, is so real for so many,
I think
because
I think that's real no matter where you're kind of at in
yeah,
your business journey, or you're just like, yeah, it's just crazy. You
absolutely.
hear some podcasts of like very successful people, and they're like, is this going to end tomorrow? Or we're at like a stalemate with like growth of the business. Should we just stop
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah, it's so true. And so that's why I think it's really creating something that lasts is really relevant. So Casper, you've got some experience doing it, and you're now in a space helping the brands from the sidelines, but still staying up close,
Hmm.
advising them in maybe how to mitigate some of that risk, that ever looming risk of, well, am I going to have to call it quits today? Or those brands that come into this hoping for that short-term success, you're helping mitigate that risk of of never seeing that success, because that's real. So
I think too, just to interrupt you,
yeah, no,
sorry.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
think too as well, in terms of people that are almost looking for that short-term success, in terms of your
Mm,
mindset of starting a fashion brand, it should never be that. And honestly,
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
you should almost prepare yourself for however long it is, say for the first year or two. Maybe you won't sell out your products once, or you might only get
Yeah.
a certain amount of sales, and that can be super disappointing. But in terms of if you want your clothing brand to be a successful business, you should
Mm,
never be thinking solely on the short term. It should be 2, 3, 4 years ahead. What are you going to achieve and how do you get to that point? So it'll be a bit longer term thinking with like your planning and also kind of your goal setting as well.
yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think simply having that mindset really changes the game and how you relate to everything that you do.
Mm,
Like everything, it's really uh it's evident when a brand has a short-term mindset that's motivating every decision that they make. Because you see it on
Definitely.
their social media, you see it in their product. You know,
Product for
maybe
sure, chasing
maybe
trends.
yeah, exactly. They
Yeah,
haven't spent as long to market. They've just wanted to quickly get the samples and quickly release the drop, and that's when issues happen. That's when you like. I mean, I'm sure as you've seen, Caspar. That's when I've seen hold up with manufacturers, brands that are trying to get to market quickly, and then their manufacturer doesn't pull through,
yeah,
and they have this release date and they can't release any garments, and these customers that have pre-ordered or ordered, even worse,
yeah,
just they don't fulfill on the promise, and they never come back. And so and your brand's your reputation, it's your biggest asset, and you destroy that before even drop one. So
yeah.
that's
You're not
that's
going to have a loyal customer after that for
that's
sure.
right. That's right. So
Yeah,
anyway, what I'm trying to get to, Caspar, is the ropes. Please share some of your insight into how with brands where there's that gap between where they are right now
hmm
and where they want to be. How does one go about bridging that gap?
yeah. So obviously, owning a clothing brand and kind of what brand you're looking to achieve and be to the public is so unique. So that's like not a one size fits all kind of solution or
Mm,
approach, I guess. I think in terms of getting to where you need to be, the first steps should be literally writing down where you want to be. There's so many
that's
people
good.
that, yeah, there's so many people that kind of have these big dreams and stuff, but until you write it down, whether this is a follower count or kind of units sold, or even kind of more so what your overall brand you want it to be and the community you're looking to build and stuff, you kind of have to have those overarching goals and then work your way backwards, and how in the short term what steps can you do, and like what actions can you take to achieve that in the long term. So I'm a big believer in working your way backwards. And to answer your question, I guess everyone's at a different stage. So if you're looking to start a clothing brand right now, your first goal might be releasing a product in the next 6 months, compared to someone that's
Mm,
potentially already released their product, but they want to
mm.
hit 10,000 units by the end of the year, whatever it ends up being. So there's not really a one size fits all answer to that, but there's just different strategies and kind of processes that you need to follow depending on where you are in your journey, basically.
Yeah, understood. And I think it's good that you mentioned there's no one size fits all, because that's true. And I believe that there are strategies that are easily manipulated to fit
Yeah,
whatever you're
100%.
doing is. And
Yeah.
as you say, in terms of writing down your goals or writing down where you want to be, everyone can do that. The thing that changes is, well, maybe the actual thing you write down, maybe as you
Mm.
say, you want to release in the next 6 months, or someone else's goals who's a bit further along might be to make the jump from part-time to full-time, or
Yeah,
side hustle to
definitely.
full-time. And yeah, and so yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, Caspar, because I on my email list, the first email that I send out is it 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 it, it prompts readers to respond to the email with what success would look like for them in their
Yeah,
brand.
that's a
And
good idea
it's
because
exactly that. It's like,
it's so different for everyone.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like the first thing, if you haven't written already and you join my email list, well, that's what you're gonna have to write, right? And
Yeah,
so,
it's a good
but
action to take for sure.
it gets you thinking, it gets your mind, it gets your mind ticking, and
I
I
was
think
yeah, I
working
was having this
from
conversation the other day actually,
mm,
and it's like other than kind of at school, it's you don't really give yourself time to think and kind of brainstorm and sit down and write your goals. Because obviously in your day-to-day life, when you maybe finish school, you're either like jump into full-time work, you're doing uni and part-time work. By the end of the day, you're probably exhausted or doing exercise now, and then it's almost time for bed. Or you might
yeah,
distract yourself on social media and stuff. And so I've had a few friends that have looked to start their own business and kind of fashion brands that are looking at, and people even saying like I'm not creative enough. And then I was like,
Yeah.
what do you actually mean by like I'm not creative enough? And then they kind of compare themselves to maybe an established brand, like I could have never have thought of that idea or whatever it ends up being. But when I ask them, when was like the last time you actually sat down for 2 hours and kind of in silence and started sketching or just like jotting your ideas down? Like you can't really, not many people have an answer for that.
That's so
So I find,
true.
yeah, I find that a pretty interesting topic because I think like everyone's got a level of creativity they can kind of tap into. It's just whether you're giving yourself the time and prioritizing that creative thinking time.
Yeah, and that comparison that happens between myself and that big brand or that big creative genius mind that I see
Yeah,
happening over there, I'm not seeing all the ideas that came before, every
yeah, for
idea that
sure.
came before. And like I
And
think
all
it's
the mistakes
amazing.
as well that's come
Yes,
before as well.
absolutely. And I think it's amazing when you get into a habit of generating ideas every single day, like not just
Mm,
consuming but producing every single day.
mm.
It's and not even for that long. Like if it's just for 5 to 25 minutes every single day, if you produce something, your mind ticks different throughout the day. And
It's actually insane how that works out.
yeah.
I kind of when I went to Europe last year, there was a bunch of times where I was just like doing big travel days and stuff like that. And like besides maybe reading and stuff, I'd just literally have my phone notes up and just let my mind wander. Um,
Awesome.
and it was like time would just go like that. And that might be a
Wow.
content idea or it might be kind of just like a personal life
Yeah.
goal and whatever. And if you kind of just, as you were saying, it might only be like 5-10 minutes a day. But if you do that every day, it's like an extra hour of creative thinking or just
Yep.
like expressing how you're feeling, your emotions, and
Mm.
being in touch with that kind of personal level that you don't usually get time to do that with in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anything where there is a need for idea generation on a frequent basis, a frequent and
Mm,
consistent basis, you need to be in a habit of like some sort of routine for generating ideas every single day. Like my own, like
yeah.
I write an email every day, and when I encourage people to do some sort of daily task, like whether it's,
Mm,
create a piece of content every day, like a Instagram reel or something like that, or write whatever, just something every day. It's like, well, how would I even come up with that many ideas?
mm.
But the truth is, you come up with too many ideas. It's funny how it works. You
Yeah, it
come
is.
like if you get into a routine of it, like I think my drafts folder in my email has like 200 drafts in it, and
That's
that's just
awesome.
the last 4 months because I had to clear it out
Yeah.
because it was just like this is wow, there's too much,
Well,
right?
it's just like when you're in that mood, you just want to
Yeah,
keep going and like
that's
it'll
right.
just, yeah, something will spiral that.
Mm,
I mean, I think an important thing with that is always, as you were saying, it'll get your mind going all day. But write it down if there's something in your head because
yes.
you even though if you think it's the best idea ever at the time, you'll probably forget it.
Yep. That's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Do you, Casper, have a way to capture ideas when they come in an instant? What's your
In terms of my
strategy?
process.
Well, like if an idea comes to you in a
Hmm.
in a in a moment and you're, just throughout your day and you think,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's a good idea, good enough to even maybe keep as a back pocket idea."
Yeah.
How do you capture that?
Depending on what it is, obviously. If it's kind of a content idea, because I'm starting to do a bit more content like creation, I'll just
Yeah.
chuck it in my phone notes at the
Yeah.
time, like depending on what I'm doing. Like
That's
you'll
good.
catch me like I can't sleep and I'll just chuck it in my phone notes or like say a little voice message to myself or something. But in terms of design work and kind of those overall ideas, again, if I'm on the run, I'll literally go on Snapchat and draw like a rough idea of what it
Oh, wow.
is. So yeah, on my like Snapchat saves, it's literally just like a stupid blue pen tool of
Yeah,
like that content because otherwise you'll forget it and you can
that's
always
right.
refer back to it and having a bank. And if you are feeling a bit, because at times you're not going to be able to think creatively and have a winning idea all the time.
That's right.
But if you've kind of got like a bank of stuff you can refer back to, that might give you a bit of
Yep.
inspiration that you needed to kind of kickstart that thinking again.
Mm,
Um, so for me, it's just jotting it down and then giving yourself that time and prioritizing that time to kind of explore that idea. Because not only do you need it if you want it to be a finished product or kind of a finished video or whatever you're working on, there's so much that will go into it after that. And you need to just kind of work on that gradually or just smash it out in the day sometimes.
Yeah. So the two learnings I see from this, whether it's writing down where you want to be or just general idea, like general idea generation, it's that you need a place to capture it, because if you don't, it'll go. And so it's important to remove every obstacle that might be in the way. Make it as easy as possible. Pin a note to your home screen, or carry, I know even though some carry a little pocket notebook around. It's not for everyone, but your phone, if nothing else, your phone works.
I've literally got mine here.
Yeah, that's great.
It's in my bag at all times.
And the second learning being, idea generation should happen in a routine. And it's not that the routine requires you to always be on top of your game and generating ideas, but having the routine will mean you're generating ideas when you're not when you're just throughout your day, when you're going throughout your day, and it means when that time comes, I need to make something now. And anyone that has any sort of business, and especially streetwear brands that is making stuff, there comes a time of the day where you need to turn to somewhere for some sort of idea. And if it's not there, well, it's in your idea capture, wherever that is.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think routine and structure for me personally is how I'm most productive. So obviously, as you were saying, like, you've got to have a place to have that down, but you also need that in an organized manner where stuff isn't everywhere. And so, but obviously that people can have kind of organization in different ways, and there will be ways that you work best. For me right now, I'm using Notion, which is kind of just like an online platform. And
Notion's good.
It's the best, honestly. I have everything, whether that's work, personal life, kind of fitness, like goals and planning, whatever it ends up being, all on the one platform, but just, kind of really organized.
You and I, Caspar, are very similar. I'm learning this more. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations, but I don't know why, but it's funny because I'm learning this more than I ever have in this conversation, because I think we're very systematic. And I'm the same. I function best in routine.
Yeah, I think if you can, I think as well, if you're looking to start, I guess, your own streetwear brand, obviously you'll be doing a bunch of things on the side. So you need to be able to understand what hours are you able to put in to put work towards like your brand at the end of the day. And that might only be an hour or only be 2 hours, but you need to know what you need to get done and also what to prioritize in those small moments you might only have.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, it sounds silly, but an hour a day in a year is 365 hours. That's a lot of hours. Like, that's a lot. Like, you could.
It also is, but it also isn't.
It isn't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. But I mean, especially for some, like if it's between 1 hour a day or nothing at all, it's like, heck, what are you doing? Like 1 hour a day. Like that's.
I think as well, when you're just looking to start something, specifically for me, it was like a clothing brand. If you're doing that extra 1 hour a day of research of free tools we have online, whether that's YouTube, there's podcasts out there that's looking at TikTok videos of brand owners, whatever it ends up being. Though that hour, if you were saying only doing an hour a day, and that's like 7 hours a week that no one else is really doing. You'll get ahead of your game so much, and just work in the shadows and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Yeah. So, okay, coming back to some of the things that people can start doing today, to mitigating some of that risk behind the streetwear brand, the risk that people don't see but maybe experience when they get into it.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you've said is writing down where you want to be, and we kind of delved into some ideas generation there as well. But is there a clear step 2 after you write down where you want to be? How do you get one step closer to bridging that gap between where a brand is right now and their desired future position?
I think if you're starting off and you've got like kind of that ideation phase down pat, it's market research. So definitely for me, because you're very into the fashion industry, I'm assuming, if you want to do your own fashion brand. So
Yeah.
look at the brands you're loving. What are they doing well? What aren't they doing well? Why do you want to create one yourself? And kind of what gaps in the market are you looking to fill? Because if you don't have that understanding, there's no really point doing the brand at all. You want to be unique. You want to have a great insight on what you're looking to achieve. And a good way of doing that is taking aspects of what brands are doing well surrounding you, whether that's locally, internationally, take the best parts of each of those brands and then putting your own spin on it.
Yeah, that's good. Market. Yeah, I mean, it's learning from those that are a few steps ahead.
For sure. And I mean, market research is kind of going into that conceptualization of what your brand is going to be in terms of getting that from, you've got your idea, you've got your logo, you've got your name. It's learning design for those products, developing that design, and then familiarizing yourself with kind of business processes in fashion. So whether you want to use a blanks garment, if you're going to use international manufacturing to have more custom options for yourself, there's so many different options, and only you doing the research yourself will be able to have that answer, because there's not a one size fits all approach as we were talking about.
I'm interested to know, Caspar, what do you think, if you were to get really specific about what doing market research looks like? I mean, should these people be buying garments from other brands and then analyzing the materials, or should they be watching everything that they post? Like, what are the very specific things that someone could be doing to do market research?
For sure. I mean, there's obviously, I think when you're looking at a brand that's doing really well, that could be Cortez, or it could be a local brand near you that you might think is going to be your main competitor. For sure, it's product itself. So with product, that would be, what materials are they using? What GSM are they using? Which is grams per square meter, if you don't know that, kind of just how thick and heavy it is. Just like the proportions on body, and what's the size guides they're using as well. How does it look when someone's wearing it? And that only comes from you literally feeling garments of your competitors, potentially looking in your own wardrobe. What do you love and what fits you best? So that's definitely the first aspect of it. And I guess to get yourself off the ground and running to launching your own product, that should be the priority. But then down the track, it's also, what are they doing marketing wise and content wise that's distinguishing themselves and giving them the best opportunity for people to see their products, potentially buy them. And then at that point, they're going to be able to feel them in person.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice that you're sharing, Caspar. I think I wrote a piece a while back called Foundational Expectations, and it was a little bit about market differentiation, and it was a bit of a dig at all these things that people think are differentiations but really aren't.
Yeah.
Like,
what did you go into?
So like, one of the things that I see people differentiating on, which I don't believe is a true differentiation, is garment quality. And so they'll say,
I agree with that to an extent.
So
for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it's about, and then I would love you to share your thoughts. And so it was like, it's people saying, the reason you should buy from us, essentially, the reason you should buy from us over every other brand is because our garments, our t-shirts are 200 GSM.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, well, that's really good, because 200 GSM t-shirts are great quality t-shirts. Yeah. And that is, it is a foundational expectation that you sell a good quality product that you believe in and that you believe your customers should buy, and it's worth its value. But is it a market differentiation?
No,
Well,
I don't think so. I think at one point it definitely was
yeah.
when I was like kind of learning about it, or even when I was just first getting into fashion.
Mm,
The emphasis of kind of a good quality garment or being like heavyweight, for example,
yeah.
wasn't the most important thing in the world. And then obviously, I think when the first few brands kind of focused on this, it was a selling point because it was something we kind of hadn't seen before, or
Yeah.
it's awesome when you put on a good quality garment, you like it more and you're more likely to rep it every day, pretty much. But then
Yeah.
when every single brand needs to do this now, it can't be your only selling point, and you can't
No.
expect I've got a 480 GSM hoodie with a puff print, and that's going to sell out because the brand did it 2 months ago. You know what I mean? There's so much more to that, and I guess the marketing of that brand and kind of the
Yeah.
community you're building alongside that brand, which has caused that other competitor to sell out that garment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, should you be making garments that are high quality, high GSM and telling everyone about it? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Should it be your only selling point? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, I think
Because
the good way to look at it as well, Elijah, is especially if you're starting your own fashion brand. Yes, obviously you want to be high quality and stuff. But
mm,
when you're doing your first launch or even your first 6 launches, the people that are going to be buying your products can't actually have that in-person experience and feel the quality of your
that
garment.
is so true.
And even when, well, consisting that you're probably operating online only, which most clothing brands
Oh,
are
yeah.
right now. But it's so simple to say, right? But no matter how good of light you show in your marketing campaigns, whether that's videos or close ups of the details, there's nothing like going into a store and trying it on. And then that's when you go, damn, this is a nice garment. They've nailed this. The quality on this is easy, like just amazing. But if you're starting out, no one trusts you. You've got no authority. You're probably not reliable. You're not seen as reliable anyway. And you need people to be able to take that risk. And then once they feel it in person, that can be an extra selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is very relevant for the many brands out there without a brick and mortar store.
Yes.
Maybe they're in some retailers, but these are social media streetwear brands,
Yeah.
right?
I
Like
reckon
these,
90%, 90%
yeah,
or more.
absolutely,
Yeah. Which
absolutely,
makes sense as well,
yeah,
especially at the beginning. And it's such an
mm,
ease of entry, I guess. And there's a lot less into it and learning wise. But yeah, you just remember you are an online store and your social aesthetic and all aspects of that need to be just as high quality as if you were having someone walk into your brick and mortar
yeah,
store. That's what one of my favorite things when I like with brand owners or just like influencers I work with, we go on their website a lot, and whether they've got someone to do it for them or they're doing it themselves, you need to think as if someone was walking for, say, this a big strip in Melbourne, like Chapel Street, for example. And if you had a store on Chapel Street, like how would you want it to be? What's the layout of it? Is it really
mm,
easy? If you've got a question, is someone going to be able to answer that quickly? Are the garments ironed? Are they displayed properly? Are there creases? No, obviously not. You're not going to do that. So
yeah,
all aspects of your online store should be the same.
yeah. That's a really good way of thinking about it. Actually, I've never thought about uh posing your website or having addressing your website as if it was a true store that
Well,
you
it
were
is your
walking into.
store. It's your
Yeah, I
only
mean, that's
store.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. But I mean, back to the foundational expectations, I think the real point is that there needs to be some more thought into, well, what is your brand differentiation? If and that means as an online store, for the most part, especially in
Hmm.
the early days and maybe even going into the future, it means that there needs to be something that goes beyond the product that differentiates your brand from every other brand out there. And
Definitely.
a meaningful differentiation, I believe, means that the point is, it's not a differentiation if someone else is doing that or got that or can say that about themselves, right? A meaningful differentiation is when you've got that and you can say that about yourself, but no one else, other people can't. They can't apply it to themselves. Like if they can so easily apply it to themselves, well, that's not a differentiation. And so,
For sure.
yeah. But so I was wondering, Caspar, if you had anything to say on forming that differentiation, particularly in the early days, but even for those who maybe haven't found that yet, how would someone go about doing that?
I think it's just, yeah, putting the time and work into finding it. And it might not come straight away at all. And you could be starting your clothing brand and it hasn't launched. So you've got to put the work in the early days so your foundations are set up from the beginning. Or
Yeah,
if you've got your brand, you're going to have a lot of different trials and tribulations along the way, and use those as opportunities to grow. For example, if your first 2-3 launches, you focus so heavily on products, and then you do like a standard photo shoot, I don't know, in a car park or whatever it ends up being, like that's not very different at all. What's the theme of the garment? What
yeah,
kind of community are you looking to build? What are they tapping into once they do
yeah,
receive the product? Like, what's the vibe you want them to feel? How are you staying connected with them? All of that, those aspects, I don't think focused enough. And you hear it all the time. Like, what community are you building? And you could say, like, I
yeah,
don't know, if you're starting a skate brand, like I want skaters to wear it. But it's so much more than that.
yeah,
And it's pretty cool. Like if you have a successful clothing brand, and I'm sure if you loved a clothing brand and bought from the past, sometimes when you get that package and that delivery, it makes your whole week. Just as simple as just getting that in the mail. And that's more than the product itself. And you kind of need to try and have those aspirations for those people that are buying from your brand to have those similar feelings.
yeah. Sam Moore from Pyra made a
Hmm.
TikTok the other week. I don't know if it's the other week, but I saw it the other week anyway. I thought it was very interesting because for those who don't know Pyra, that their whole thing is inspiring movement in the elements, which is
Hmm.
interesting because it has nothing to do with clothing itself, but it's a conceptual or intangible idea really
Yeah.
that they're selling that's represented by the clothing. And so Sam Moore the founder made this TikTok about differentiating yourself for new brand owners. And he said a great way to do it is to really delve into a very specific
Niche.
lifestyle,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And look, this is one way. It's not the only way, but it is a way. And it's one of my favorite ways because it immediately you're not competing in the category of fashion anymore. Because
Yeah.
if your life's, I mean, a very common one, and it's not really differentiation anymore because it's very overdone, is as you said, like skateboarding. Like that's a
Yeah.
lifestyle for some people, right? You're if you the skate brands in the early days when they came about and everyone's just selling clothing, but then you have Supreme that's selling clothing for the skaters. Well, they're now
Mm.
competing in a category of 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 skaters and skateboarding, and that's totally different from fashion. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's such a small change, but it means that you kind of create your own playing field in a way. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Supreme. Pyras is about moving in the elements, and that's everything from you could break that down into hiking, and you could and into I don't know, even like photography and like outdoor wildlife photography and
For
like
sure.
these are the kind of things that come with the lifestyle that have nothing to do with the product, but uh, everything about the brand and a really good way to differentiate yourself in an oversaturated market. It's going beyond the product.
Definitely, for sure. And I think all aspects of that as well. I know Pyro specifically, they do their photo shoots in the outdoors to
Yeah,
resemble that. And
yeah,
yeah, so it's the connection of all aspects of their clothing brand for
yeah,
that one message.
Yeah. Yeah. And just and to reiterate, defining yourself in a lifestyle is one way to do it. It's not the only way, but it is a way to do
For
it.
sure.
And it's a way I really enjoy. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
think as well,
one
it's important to go like people say always niche down and always niche down and stuff like
mm,
that. But you don't want to kind of limit yourself to. I was dealing with this fashion brand the other day, and they wanted to be like kind of the best kind of outerwear and hoodies and stuff like that, which was a great idea. And they were almost kind of looking to put that in their name and just in their bio and everything. And they could specialize only on that, but they're just beginning their brainstorming and planning. And it's like, trust me, a lot can happen in a week, 2 months, 3 months. You don't want to limit yourself down to a singular product, for example. So it's important to like
yeah.
have a kind of a lifestyle message, but don't niche down so small that you can't grow and expand as well as your brand hopefully is developing.
That's actually a really good point, Caspar, about the danger of some differentiations.
Mm,
And that might be if you're differentiating yourself or niching yourself based on product, in that we only sell t-shirts. And that is like, if you want to be the best t-shirt selling company, it's like that
you
you're
can
right.
do that. You
Yeah.
definitely can do that, and it's not to say don't do that at all. Um, if you're able to create the best quality t-shirts and the best quality designs and promote this lifestyle of people wearing and loving these t-shirts, and you do it successfully, it's not like a bad answer or a bad like business model at
Mm,
all. But just keep in mind that so much can happen with time, and
yeah.
as you develop, your brand's probably going to develop alongside you.
Yeah. That's a good point. I heard this. I have no idea where I've heard this phrase, but because I'd love to credit it, I definitely didn't come up with it, but I don't know where to credit it,
Claim
so
it.
I'm just gonna say it anyway. It's that you can market to one person and sell to everyone. You can
Yeah,
market to
I've
one
heard that.
person
I heard that the other day as well.
and you can sell to everyone. And what it means is that you could, like, for instance, like I'll go back to the Pyro example. It's that Pyro is marketing to a very specific person. That's someone who loves the outdoors, right?
Sure.
But just say, just say my friend who doesn't, he's a homebody, total homebody. He hates anything to do with the outdoors. Does that
Yeah.
mean that he cannot buy from Pyro? Well, of course not.
Yeah.
Is Pyro going to accept my
They'll
friend's
accept.
business?
Yeah.
Of
For
course.
sure.
Is he gonna still love the garment? Yes, probably yes.
Mm,
But the fact that there's people like my friend that exist who are homebodies doesn't stop Pyra from marketing to one person.
for sure. That's a
And the
good point.
fact and the fact that there's people like my friend who are homebodies that buy from Pyra, that are already customers of Pyra, doesn't stop Pyra from marketing to one type of person. And so
Mm,
I think one objection that I hear to differentiation by niching down to choosing a specific customer is, well, I really don't want to limit
yeah. Yeah.
my,
Yeah.
my capacity to sell. Well, I don't know if you knew this, but you probably wear Nike sneakers and you're not even the target customer of Nike.
Yeah. You're not
Yeah,
an athlete.
it's exactly. So it's and that's right. I don't like it's the same goes for any brand. And so
Mm,
the whole point of marketing to one person is because if you don't market to anyone, well, you're not going to sell to anyone. But if you
yeah.
market to one person, you can sell to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Anyway,
good
I
point.
just wanted to, yeah, I wanted to,
Just get that out there.
yeah, that's right, man. No, this is great. Because I'm very passionate, Casper, about the everything that you're talking about. Um, about differentiating, about niching down. I'll share one more thing that I heard. I know who to quote this time, right? This is Seth
Nice.
Godin,
Good
right?
start.
So Seth Godin, I don't know. Do you know who Seth Godin is,
Yeah.
Casper?
Yeah. 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 I do.
Yeah, right. Well, for those who don't know anyway, he's like he's a guy in the world of marketing, and he's pretty good. He's got his head screwed on. He's been in the business world for probably more than 50 years. And he's he's quoted for saying, market to the smallest viable audience, right? Marketing to the smallest viable audience. And what that means, when it says viable audience, that's referring to, well, what's this audience size that's big enough to sustain you and your brand, right?
Mm.
And so in like, what's an example I can pull for this? Like you might like, I can think of, yeah, if you think of like doing ads, like Facebook ads, when it
Mm-hmm.
asks you to like pick an audience or pick a person, it'll generally give you the audience size or the estimated audience size. And it
Yeah.
might say like, they're in this audience of people who are interested in business, there are more than 10 million people that we could be pushing your ad to. But you can make that more specific, and you can go, okay, well, how about people who are interested in business and dogs? And now
Yeah,
they'll
for
say,
sure.
well, there's about 1 million. All right. And then you could say people who are interested in business, into dogs, they're between the ages of 18 and 25, and they're males. And so now it goes, all right, well, now you're down to 100,000. And so what this is about is picking the smallest viable audience, is really about choosing that one person who you're going to market to.
For
Is
sure.
and so
And I
so yeah.
think I think that's a good thing in terms of with having that big audience. There's so many different things people are looking for, or like a solution to their problems. But if you like niche it down, so instead of people that are interested in fashion, you might do active wear. And then what's the gap in
Mm,
that market? What's the pain point that people are experiencing in the active wear community? What language do they respond to? And then
yeah,
you can plan your brand around those kind of concepts.
that's so very true. And the very fact that as you say, niching down allows you to speak more directly to an audience in language that they respond better to. Just having that ability alone is like a superpower. Like if you know who you're talking to, you will just do so much better at capturing them. Even the whole, like, coming back to what we're talking about before about idea generation. Idea generation comes
Mm,
so easy when you know very specifically who your one person is. Like it's like, what are they going to enjoy and consume? It's very hard to say this is what 7 billion people like to
yeah,
enjoy. They
for
all like to
sure.
watch, because it's like, well, there's probably very little places where that overlaps. But
Yeah,
if
for
you think,
sure.
well, this is what people who are striving to conquer their fears, that
Mm,
very specific type of person, here's what the content that they enjoy and consume. Well, that just got a lot easier. The whole idea generation got quicker and more, and is able to be more consistent and more effective. And so yeah, that absolute superpower.
I had that discussion the other day in terms of talking about target audiences.
Mm,
And I think it's a very kind of outdated, well, for the most part, it's a very outdated process. Because if you look up like how do I find my target audience? It gives you the age
yes.
range and stuff, and that's great. But it'll be like, let's answer these questions of like, what food do they like? And it's just like, that's got nothing to do for your streetwear community. And more times than not, if you're looking to start a fashion brand, it's kind of just a creative expression of what you want in the fashion industry. So you should be asking yourself, what do I want what am I looking to create? So like go straight to the source and ask yourself these questions. Don't do guesswork of people's bloody favorite foods and music if it's not related to you. And also I think people like kind of skip over this process and don't take it seriously enough, because they
Wow.
even might ask
Yeah.
themselves and write down what they assume people's kind of are into. But you need to go out and ask your audience. Like,
Yeah.
actually, whether that's your friends or randoms on the street that you're looking to target, what products do you want to see? What details do you want to see? What do you think's going out of fashion? What are you hoping goes into fashion in the next 2 years again? And that way you're going straight to the source. You're knowing what exactly people are looking to get. You're learning about the languages they respond to, and then you'll know how to kind of market and create content and products to hopefully fulfill these solutions.
Yeah, that it reminds me of a story, Caspar, that I'll share. I was working with this brand that'd been in the business for maybe a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and they were trying. So we were collaborating to try. Our goal was to increase their lifetime customer value. Right. So great metric to increase, by the way, because you increase a lifetime customer value, it just everything on all levels gets more profitable.
The customer's always right.
Exactly. And same amount of customers, you increase the lifetime customer value, and you are just increasing your product, your profitability exponentially. So this was the goal. And so what we decided to do was pick 5 of their most loyal customers, right? So these were the customers with the highest lifetime customer value. And so what we were able to track down with the help of the founder was these 5 different people that had bought in excess of 5 times, some of them as many as 10 times. So these are super fans, right? If there was ever a super fan customer, it was these guys.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Some of them even went as far as to buy the same product multiple times.
That's
right.
dope.
Not because they needed it, but because they love the brand and they love what they were doing that much. Okay. So these were super fans. Am I painting the picture, right? They're crazy. So anyway,
we love crazy though.
Yeah, that's right. We love crazy, right? Nah. So anyway, so what I do is I hop on the phone with each of them one by one, and I interview them because, again, we're trying to increase the lifetime customer value. In other words, we're trying to get more of people like this. We're trying to get more customers that buy 2 or more times, let alone 5 or 10, right? And so I get on the phone with these guys and interview them. And so the goal here is to discover what the common string here, what the common trait is, right? Because it wasn't immediately obvious. It was really weird. And you go to like search customer avatar, right? And their customer avatars, their demographic was entirely different, right? And this is the general advice for branding is to, like, go get yourself a customer avatar, and it'll have marital status, and it'll have age, and it'll have where they live, income level, like these metrics like this, right? These people were, like one of them was like 18, another one was 30, another one was 40. It's like, okay, 18 and 40, like it's not, I don't know if that metric's checking out. One of them was married with kids. Another of them was a single female. It's That's like, cool. This isn't checking out either. So, like, what is the common string? We get talking, and I'm figuring a lot. I'm learning a lot about each of their lives, and I'm taking notes. And like each of these interviews is like, probably an hour long. So it's taking time because it's like interviewing customers takes time, right?
It's a really good process to do, actually.
Yeah. And so what I figured, like I got to the end of it, I'm looking at all these notes, and I'm like, I'm scratching my head because I'm like, this was supposed to work, right? There's supposed to be something that connects each and every one of these. And I'm looking at all these metrics that you're supposed to be looking at, and nothing's lining up. And I realized I'm looking at the wrong thing. I realize I'm looking at the wrong thing because in their discussions, when they start talking about their interests, their hobbies, their passions, what they love in life, what drives them to get up out of bed in the morning, that one, what drives them to get out of bed in the morning, what things are integral to who they are, how they introduce themselves at a party, right?
Yeah.
These things were hidden in the notes. And so what I found is the common string was that each of these 5 loyal customers of this brand were all in some way seeking or striving or already have done some work to, as they put it in many different ways, free themselves, right? Free themselves. And it was all for all of them, it was about they had been in a very tough situation, especially mentally. And they are striving for or working towards or already have work towards a place where they're self-developed, where they're mentally strong. And that was an integral part of their identity. So much so that that's what they talk about with their friends. And that's also who their friends are. And so what I figured out from this is that people don't buy because they're 18 years old, or because they're married and have 3 kids, or because their income level is $60,000 a year. People buy because of their identity.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I construct custom avatars, it's, to be honest, I forget the stuff about age, right? Yes, it's important. And for some, especially for particular types of brands, it's going to be essential to know, well, who are we talking to here and how old are they, for example.
Definitely.
But every time now, the number one thing I'm thinking about is, what is integral to this person's identity? What is their core interest, belief, lifestyle, ethos, ideology? It could be any one of those things, right? What is the thing that's integral to their lifestyle? And the funny thing is, because people buy because of identity, when a brand represents and reflects that identity back onto their customers, and they recognize that, I go, I really relate with this brand. I resonate with it.
Yeah.
That's why they would be so loyal to buy again and again and again. It's not because the product was better than everyone else, although it was good. And it's not because the marketing really caught their attention, although it did. It's really because they relate in such a way so deeply with the brand that they want to tell the whole world, yes, I'm wearing Nike because I consider myself an athlete, and that's so deep. And I want everyone to know that I'm an athlete.
I think as well, that's a really good point. And to kind of relate it to smaller streetwear brands, I think there's a huge shift in building your personal brand alongside the actual
talk about
clothing.
That, Talk about it.
In terms of the actual clothing brand itself, I think with the saturation of all industries, but especially clothing brands, with, say, the rise of TikTok popularity and stuff like that, people don't want to just see the products which we've spoken about. It's who's making the products, who's the face of the brand.
Absolutely.
What's inspired them to do it. And people are sick of all the fake stuff. Like, you want to have a genuine connection with people on social media now, or at least you should be, as a brand owner, showcasing, I'd say, your face if you're comfortable with it. And that'll be a big process and kind of stepping out of a lot of people's comfort zones. But if you're able to talk to the camera, what's the design process? What inspired you to make this product? What were the trials and tribulations? What were the mistakes you made? How long has it taken you to perfect this perfect garment? People are going to see your personality. They're going to know that you're a real person.
That's right.
If they like you and respect you, they're going to support you, not just the brand. Like, there's a bunch of people I know that support, I'm not going to name the brand, but like, they don't love the product. It's not the favorite thing they've ever released, but just to support the person because of how authentic they are and how much craftsmanship they put into their products and care, they'll buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. I mean, that's such a deep well of so that's a whole nother podcast you could go into. But like, oh man, Caspar, I'd love you to talk about it more. Because I couldn't agree with you more. The personal brand is just another way to differentiate yourself, because people, again, it's going beyond the product, because people are no longer buying the product as such, but they're buying into the personality, and personalities are easy to connect with. And that's why we love them.
Yeah.
Because we love to connect with a face. And so please, if you can touch on briefly, how do you go about creating a personal brand, Caspar?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Good answer.
I think you'll see a rise, I reckon, in the next 6 months. But I was talking to a few brand owners, and one really big brand owner, and he would always have his face linked to the brand, but he never spoke to his audience.
Right.
So, and at one stage with TikTok, I think that was a really good stepping stone. And not many people were doing that. They were just showing the products itself. And then it's like, hey, this is me wearing my own product potentially. Like,
Yeah.
and that was the next big thing, and people loved it. And now it's quickly changing, and that dynamic shifting so rapidly, I reckon, where I, this is a big call, but I honestly reckon like brand pages, especially on TikTok, are just like dying.
Caspar, I agree with you.
I had a really interesting conversation with this big kind of streetwear brand owner in Australia, and he was saying like he's not going to do it, and he will always post on his brand account, but he's honestly thinking that he's going to post 90% of upcoming content on his personal TikTok compared to his clothing brand
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah, I agree with you, Caspar. And I think, to be honest, it's been coming for a long time. And I believe it stems back to the fact that a lot of these brand pages look like store pages.
Mm.
And social media isn't, yes, people shop on Instagram, but
Yeah.
Instagram users, for example, aren't built to shop, right? The
sure.
platform isn't built as a shopping platform. The platform is built for entertainment and connectivity.
Yeah.
And so you see the difference between the brands that treat their pages as a store page versus those who decide to entertain, inspire, and educate. There is an integral difference between those two. And one of them is really getting alongside the platform and its objectives, and they're capturing people by doing so. And then the other one is, as you say, that's the one I believe is on the way out. And so the way that people are entertaining and connecting is one of those ways, like through their personal brands, because they're figuring out, well, I need to do more than just sell a product.
Well,
and then,
I think it's the familiarity aspect of
yes.
it. I would do in terms of, I always like to bring it back because it's an online brand, but bring it to the real world and think of it like that. So I had another conversation where it's like, if you were going into a shopping mall, yeah, and there's 6 streetwear brands, right? All selling very similar things, oversized hoodies, outerwear, it might be a new fleece jacket, whatever it ends up being. If you and a group of friends know that out of those 6 stores, one of them being the store owners is someone you know, you're probably going to visit that store first. And you're more likely to support that store. And it's the same thing online. So it's like if there's 6 similar brands near you, locally, internationally, whatever it ends up being, but you're getting your face out there, people feel like they know you as a friend through your content, they're probably going to support your brand first if you're able to also develop your like product development and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And I think it's going to swing very quickly in the fashion industry in the next 6 months, 12 months. And you see it now. There's so many big brands that are probably killing it numbers wise and making heaps of money. But their brand page on, say, TikTok has like 5-10K followers. But the owner on their personal TikTok has 300-400K.
Yeah. Man, that is, if there was ever a gem or free, if there was anything so free to be dropped, free value, that was it. That was it, Caspar. Oh
Free
my
sauce.
goodness.
Free sauce.
Yeah. There's been some really big things we've spoken about on this podcast, starting with writing down where you want to be, doing your market research, the importance of a differentiation, and finally, of course, starting a personal brand. These all could be individual podcasts in and of themselves. So Caspar, if it's all right with you, I would love to have you on another time, sometime in the future, to talk about these things more in depth, because this was incredible.
It's such a complex business. Or I think
yes,
the fashion industry is so complex, but it's also changing so quickly.
yes,
It's crazy. So there's going to be new things to talk about. But then, like, kind of linking it back, there's processes and structures and systems that you can always follow. and need to follow, especially if you're looking to start your clothing brand, to get yourself in a position to be able to manipulate and pivot at the right moment. From like finding a manufacturer, building that relationship with the manufacturer, creating tech packs, all of those things, design development, all of they never change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, Caspar, I think that leads really nicely onto what you're doing at the moment in terms of the practical things, because I don't know, like many of the listeners wouldn't know, because I don't know how much of this you've released yet, but I'd love you to tell people where they can find, like, what you're doing, why they should care, and where they can find you if any of what you're doing resonates with them.
For sure. So basically what I'm looking to do is helping startup brands, or even if you're an already established clothing brand, just kind of giving insights, tips, and providing, whether it's templates, resources, and digital products, to help with all aspects of starting a clothing brand, and helping to sell out your garments. So specifically, if you're starting your brand, it might be, what's definitions that I need to know? How do I find a manufacturer? What makes a good manufacturer? Once I'm in communication and talks with them, what kind of products and resources do I need to send to them? And then going into those resources, setting up templates, design helping kind of resources as well. All aspects of the brand will be what I'm looking to achieve and be a resource for, because when I was starting out, you don't know where to go. There's so much information online, and people say different things, and there is different solutions to systems, but I want to kind of be an all-in-one resource and guide, where if you're looking to build your brand and start a brand, instead of wasting potentially your time, effort, and money getting scammed and things like that, putting yourself in the best position to grow your dream streetwear brand, basically. So at the moment, I'm posting on TikTok mainly, and Instagram, and slowly building my website in the background, as well as finalizing these digital products so they're top notch and good to go. And not only do they provide useful information, but hopefully you think so, but I'm making them very actionable as well, because you can get bombarded with all this information and it can be very daunting and stressful if you're beginning out. But if there's a step-by-step guide on what you need to do, why you need to do it, and how to do it, that's what I wish what I had when I was starting a streetwear brand. So that's what I'm looking to kind of be, that resource for people.
And Caspar and I have been collaborating in some senses, like in terms of, you know, we have a relationship where we send each other things, and it's really good because we get to bounce
Give me
off
advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I wanted to say, dear listener, I've had a look through a lot of these unfinished resources that Caspar is creating, and he could post them right now as they are, and you would receive a ridiculous amount of value from them. And they are actually, like, they are standalone.
Appreciate
and that's
that.
to say, and that's to say that if any of these resources, when they are available, you will not need to go anywhere else, because they, as Caspar says, actionable, and they truly are. They tell you exactly what to do, and how to do it. And I think that is a resource more valuable than ever, because this is hours of time saved, hours, days, weeks. This is like thousands of dollars saved, and that's just for a startup. Don't even get me started. If your scale's a little bit bigger, this is you put a few more zeros on how much money you could be saving on there. And so that's the true value of this resource. It's time and money. And they are the two most valuable resources that we have. And so
you either pay with your time or you pay with your money in this life, for sure.
Absolutely. And so if you have the money, when these resources are available, like follow Caspar on those platforms, on Instagram and TikTok, because you don't want to sleep on these resources. They're truly very good. So yeah, thank you, Caspar, for coming and sharing all of your knowledge and your valuable knowledge on the show. I really appreciate that, and so do the listeners, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me. Always good to chat.
Yeah. And look, I really hope it's not as long as it was between last time and this time before the next time.
It'll be quicker than a couple of years, probably.
I'm really, goodness, I hope so. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Caspar.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.